Playing Dying Light as a 14-year-old not long after its 2015 release was terrifying. My friend and I were both really freaked out when we had to get on the ground level in between the effortless rooftop parkour that made up most of the first game's traversal. And that fear, that terror, was made not only so much more palpable by the ambience of the infected city of Haran, but by the story of the outbreak, and most importantly, the stories of the survivors. So, when I realized the third entry to the franchise, Dying Light the Beast, was coming out this year, I got pretty excited. Kyle Crane is back. But you clicked on this video because you're probably wondering, is the story of Dying Light the Beast any good? And how does it connect to the rest of the games? In order to find out, we have to go all the way back to get the big picture. Not just to Dying Light 1, but its prequel book, a canonical novel called Dying Light Nightmare Row, which explains how the outbreak began. From there, we can contextualize the events of the whole franchise, how the story progresses throughout Dying Light 1 and 2, and finally culminating in the full story of the Beast. So without further ado, grab your firecrackers, get ready to smash some skulls with your surprisingly deadly metal pipes, and put on your seatbelts. No, seriously, put on your seatbelts. They added a truck to the new game. If you also think Dying Light is awesome, or are simply enjoying The Beast, give this video a like, and let's begin. Ah! The story of Dying Light begins in a breathtaking fictional city-state set in the Middle East called Haran. The tourist hotspot was an otherwise historically rich location. Its culture was varied, placing it in close proximity to Turkey and Armenia. Broken up into the Old Town, slums, and the New Town, it made its evolution clear as much as it wasn't the most iconic city-state in the world. But in 2014, an international youth adult organization called Peace in Our Time, or PIOT, sponsored a whole event to draw in tons of tourists from around the world, and primarily draw in athletes to compete in the Haran Global Athletic Games. At least one of the categories, if not the primary category for the athletic games, was for parkour, hence why Dying Light has a particular emphasis on the sport. But what went wrong? Well, in the 3 weeks leading up to when the games would take place, Haran's Commissioner of Health, Dr. Khalim Abbas, was going about his regular day-to-day when he started noticing unusual symptoms from patients. People were reporting that they'd been bitten by crazed individuals, feeling flu-like symptoms not long after. What had been 2 or 3 cases turned into dozens. It was getting out of control. With the upcoming international event that would draw hundreds or thousands of people from around the world to the region, Dr. Abbas had a foreboding feeling about the incidents. Something big was coming. But when he reported it to President Hamid, the disgruntled leader made it clear where his priorities were placed. He refused to even consider canceling the games, prioritizing the public-facing image of Haran over the public safety of anyone, local Haranites or not. This failure of leadership would come to be the cause of what happened next, and what would transform a dangerous but local virus into a disastrous global anomaly, which would try its damnedest to bring about the end of humanity. Dying Light Nightmare Row, the prequel to Dying Light 1, sets the tone well with its opening scene. Standing across the road from a school, Dr. Khalim Abbas heard strange noises emanating from the building. The Haran Commissioner of Health had only just dropped off tissue samples at the local postal office before deciding to investigate the school. Rumors spoke of the place being some kind of hub for those afflicted with the disease he had seen affect multiple patients by now. He had to know why symptomatic people were gathering in this particular spot. A man stumbled out of the school doors as Dr. Abbas hid from view behind a lamppost. Blood smeared on his kaftan, the man drunkenly stumbled down the street towards the city square, and to make matters worse, the negligent president, who had ignored Abbas's concerns until now, had just invited hundreds of oblivious visitors from around the world to the stadium where the games were taking place right then. In 3 short weeks, hell had come to Haran, and Dr. Abbas was perhaps the only individual in the city-state who truly knew it. It was 2014, and she was going to the games. Coach Barnes told Melanie after tryouts, congratulating the athlete. It meant a lot to her to be chosen to participate in the Haran Global Athletic Games. The 18-year-old high school senior was proud. Melanie Wyatt would represent her high school, and in a parkour race no less. Sponsored by the youth peace organization PIOT, the games would be set in Haran. Mel didn't exactly care where it was though, she was just excited to go, and once she made the cut, Mel and her family flew out that summer to Haran, oblivious just as the rest of the world was to the horrors that would spawn from the region just in time for the athletic games to begin. Welcome to Haran. Dr. Abbas had a rather busy day at the local slums clinic he helped maintain. Spending at least one day of his week there, he felt it was his duty to see what it was like on the front lines. He didn't want to be ignorant to the suffering of those in poverty. Other days of the week he'd work in his office in the newly constructed and far less impoverished Newtown. The doctor was beginning to hear strange reports from his friend and chief of police, Chief Demir. Violent attacks were happening around the city, a strange spike in the same kinds of crimes. In the earliest days of the virus, those infected were still partly aware of what they were doing, more agitated than anything. Angry, but still able to talk and shout obscenities and so on. It mimicked rabies more than anything. Eventually, they would become uncontrollable, committing violence, and what could be done beyond trying to apprehend them? Who then could have known it was the start to something so much worse? Police shot and killed a man that came at them holding a weapon on Sunday night. Media covers it the next day, but it's reported as a freak incident. The attacks are happening more frequently. Dr. Abbas warns President Hamid of the outbreak and the severity of this virus, as well as the need for it to be controlled at all costs. But the leader shrugs it off, telling Abbas that as the Commissioner of Health, it's his job to handle the infection, not the job of the president. The leader cared only about the image of his city, an ironic mistake given what the virus would do to its legacy soon enough. 1 week before the disaster. It was Saturday, the Wyatt family's third night in Haran. Mel, her brother Paul, and her mother and father Janine and Gary Wyatt were touring the city-state. The games would take place the following Wednesday through Saturday, but like many of the athletes, Mel arrived the week in advance to train on-site and tour the region, aided by their sponsor. While the family finished having dinner in the historic Old Town, the peaceful evening ambience was broken by a shriek. It was so loud, Mel thought it was a siren at first, before realizing the sound was coming from a human being, their screams starting and stopping at random intervals. Suddenly, a family appeared to be chased into view by a crazed man in a kaftan. A bystander attempted to help, but was tackled by the lunatic, who began to beat his victim against the ground mercilessly, strangling them until they stopped moving. Police showed up and chased after the individual as he ran off into the darkness. The Wyatts, shaken by the incident, swiftly left the restaurant to return to their hotel. Tuesday, free clinic. A young boy named Joran Bedar was one of Dr. Abbas's first patients to present symptoms of the virus, and was also the first human the doctor witnessed going feral in person. The boy's eyes were bloodshot and full of terror. It was obvious that fear was the catalyst of the screaming. It was as if he thought everyone and everything around him were threats.
Get him in one of the rooms, quick!
The other patients in the waiting room had gotten up from their seats, pushing away from the staff that carried the boy to an examination room.
It's all right, everyone. The poor boy has a painful disease. It's not contagious. Have a seat, and we'll get to you as soon as we can.
It's not contagious. How did he know that? Was that the first lie he would tell about the strange events occurring in Haran? Abbas swiftly sedated the boy, and he calmed down slightly, but not for long. Suddenly, Joran clamped his teeth down on his mother's arm, drawing blood. Joran bolted from the table, his jaws snapping at anyone who came within a few inches of him. Nobody dared to restrain the boy. He was an animal.
Stop him!
Unimpeded, Joran raced out of the clinic and into the street, joining the other missing persons who would wander and vanish into the nooks and crannies of Haran. You know what? Talking about all this infection is making me a little hungry. Luckily, I don't have to get away from my work for too long, thanks to Factor, the sponsor of this video. With Factor, you can get quick, delicious meals to your door instead of spending your money on takeout. Factor has a menu of over 80 rotating weekly meals and has so many different options for people with dietary restrictions, so you're sure to find something you love one way or another. Between going to the gym and doing motion capture, reaching my protein goals was difficult. But with Factor, everything is so much easier. With high-protein options like the brown butter grilled chicken and Yukon mash and potato leek mash and grilled chicken, I'm able to meet my protein goals without compromising on time or flavor. Yummalish. So, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code NETTYTHENOODLEFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code NETTYTHENOODLEFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus a free breakfast for one year. Thank you, Factor, for sponsoring today's video. Back to the zombies. D-Day, the final Saturday. Abbas stood in front of the Yuri school. It had been a nightmarish week. Reports of killings had skyrocketed, but who was there to release said reports? Abbas had already lost contact with the police chief. Earlier that day, the doctor had finished packing blood samples as well as a letter to accompany the package, whom he was sending to an American colleague of his, Dr. Marlowe. He sent the package off at a post office, but realized he had forgotten the letter. Cursing to himself, he had made up his mind to rewrite it, but got distracted wandering over to the school where bad things seemed to orbit around.
If you're going inside, you'd better get going. Be brave. It can't possibly be that bad, can it?
After reaching the doors, Abbas listened intently. Moans of agony reverberated from inside the building. He opened the doors, being met with a nauseating stench. The initial foyer was empty, and as Abbas stepped inside, he realized the sounds were coming from the gym. He approached, before opening them and witnessing the horrors inside. Abbas screamed, stumbling backwards before he froze, unable to run. The many eyes inside flicked in his direction, and by then, it was already too late. The sun had gone down. Mel looked up but couldn't see the stars, only the bright lights of the stadium. Then it was time. The race began. Mel had no problem with the many parkour obstacles that lay ahead of her on the track. She ran up ramps, climbed walls, and grabbed colored ribbons, the second win condition for runners beyond simply making good time and passing the finish line. Mel took a moment to glance at her family, the tiny dots in the stadium cheering her on. As she was nearly finished with her second lap, Mel noticed something in the corner of her eye. The spectators appeared to be fighting. She tried to ignore it, but multiple fights were breaking out in different areas of the crowd.
What the hell is going on?
Suddenly, the commencement ceremony horses, which had been kept in stables until now, burst into the arena, terrified for their lives, stampeding into the field. She glanced at where her brother and parents had been in the crowd. People were evacuating the section. Mel bolted to her family. Something wasn't right. As she ran, she witnessed crazed individuals chomping down on any otherwise healthy person they could, taking a few bites before attacking a different person, spreading fast. She reached her family's section, finding draped bodies and blood smeared among the stands.
Mom! Dad!
After she scoured the stands, she heard her brother crying.
Paul! I'm here! It's okay. It's okay. Where's Mom and Dad?
Sobbing, Paul pointed down the stands away toward a woman hunched over a bench, soaked in blood. It was their mother. Paul grabbed Mel's arm tight as the older sister processed what to do next.
We have to leave her, honey. I'm sorry, but we have to. Come on. Stay with me now, all right? Let's go.
The siblings escaped the barbaric stadium as police and military swarmed the area, though at this point it would be far too late for the government to stop what had already begun. In the week and a half that followed, Mel and Paul holed up in the hotel that they had been staying in during the visit. With spotty electricity and barely functioning utilities, they held out as long as they could alongside a group of survivors, but it didn't take long for disaster to strike again. 2 weeks after the Saturday Stadium massacre, things were dire. Water and food were scarce, tensions through the roof. To make things worse, the group had more to worry about than the infected. Rival gangs had begun to threaten them. That night, Mel was with Paul in their room when an explosion shook the building. The older sister investigated the source, finding infected storming into the lobby, fire everywhere. Someone had blown up a part of the building, and to make matters worse, there were reports of infected on the 3rd floor. Mel rushed back to her and Paul's room, but found it empty. Her brother was gone. Fighting for her life through the hotel, she thought she had found Paul through the smoke, but it was infected. He bit down on her left arm, hard, ripping her windbreaker. In the chaos, Mel managed to escape the hotel. It was 11 p.m. Exhausted, she stumbled into a dark, empty structure, bandaged her arm, and hid, curling up in a ball, as desperate, fighting screams echoed through the streets. Let's pause from the intensity for just a second. First of all, if you've enjoyed this video thus far, please take a second to crush the like button below. It really helps more people to see things like the lovely art done just for this video made by Umbra Dareful. Second, the rest of Mel's story is something that I truly recommend reading yourself, because it's hard to condense 200 pages of character development into such a short section of a large video like this. So if you'd rather avoid spoilers as to her fate, skip to this timestamp here. Otherwise, let's wrap up Dying Light Nightmare Row. Mel wakes up, exhausted and sick to her stomach. She would begin to experience horrible symptoms, though due to her athleticism, one of many factors which affected how long a person could withstand the virus before turning, Mel wasn't going to succumb anytime soon. It helped too that she had a burning desire to find her brother no matter what. Sneaking along the boulevard that the hotel survivors had aptly named Nightmare Row, Mel made her way around the city, scavenging, killing infected, and running into the odd survivor here and there. She experienced terrible nausea, much like what we find is a common symptom in Dying Light 1. Along her journey, Mel acquires a sword, a calige, as well as managing to nab a GRE sent supply drop carrying antizin, a medicine which could suppress the virus. Eventually, Mel makes it to the city square where she stumbles upon Dr. Abbas's office. It's basically untouched, and the athlete almost can't believe her eyes, finding the mostly functional, luxurious facilities. She also finds the letter that Abbas had meant to send to his colleague, eventually opening it up and reading over the piece of paper that would reveal everything. The truth of the outbreak, which she alone now held in her hands.
Christina, I'm afraid that a strange and befuddling disease has come to the slums area of Haran. You will see my notes on a case that first came to me at the free clinic. The problem is that I have not been able to study the progression of the virus because patients simply disappear. They vanish, run away from their homes, and go into hiding somewhere in the city. Then the bodies started showing up in the streets. Murder victims, people who had been attacked by someone or something. Most of them died from fatal wounds. The Haran Global Athletic Games began yesterday, and we have thousands of visitors here from all over the world. Our hotels are completely full. I attempted to warn President Hamid and other members of the cabinet, but no one would listen. You see, it was vitally important that the games take place for Haran's economy. The government hopes the games will bring in much-needed commerce, as well as focus the world's attention on Haran for a brief moment, resulting in more tourism. At any rate, I'm very worried. The games have begun, and it appears that the virus and attacks have moved beyond the slums and have infiltrated other areas of the city, including Newtown, where most of the tourists and our stadium, where the games are being held, is located. I tried to contact my friend Karim, but he has been unreachable for days. Last night, I was here in the office, working late, making phone calls, trying to find out something. I said my prayers, and then drove home. And, Christina, there were dozens of people out. They all appeared to be walking toward the school. And I could just tell, these people were infected with the virus. The postal office is supposed to be open today, so I'm going there now. To tell the truth, I'm still frightened, but I will do what I think is right. Sincerely yours, Khalim.
Mel dropped the letter in awe at what she now knew. She had so many questions, yet so few answers to any of them. Who was at fault? Everyone? Mel didn't expect she had much time left before turning, and she refused to use the antizone on herself on the off chance that Paul, if he was infected, needed it. She eventually traveled to the school, the hub of where infected had been gathering, and spotted Paul. He was moving slowly in short steps towards the gymnasium, covered in blood just like the other shamblers. But Mel couldn't just rush up and grab him. She needed a plan. After gathering Molotov cocktails, a lighter, her colleague, and a mailbag to plop over Paul's head, Mel entered the school. The gym was revolting, but she pushed into the large room, lighting and tossing Molotovs over the crowd to distract the horde. Then she swiftly plopped a bag over Paul's head, the large bag covering the upper part of his body, before tying it off and pulling him on a leash out of the school to safety, as the horde panicked and burned behind them. After taking her brother to an abandoned coffee shop, Mel injected him with the antizin, hoping it could save the boy. Minutes went by, but Paul continued to squirm like a volatile animal.
Paul, stop. Please stop. It's me. It's Mel.
Mel could sense another sickness coming on as she hurled nearby. She felt the infection overtaking her body. Then she passed out. When she awoke, Mel felt like she would turn at any second. She weakly reached into her pack and pulled out the handgun, a revolver that she had scavenged. As she struggled to hold the cold metal, she saw her mother and father in the corner, telling her to end Paul's torment. She asked if she should do the same, but then her parents were gone. Tears flowed. Drifting in and out of visions of her and her brother when they were younger, Mel could barely hold on to her thoughts. She managed to hold Paul still and press the gun against the outline of his head before pulling the trigger.
Forgive me, Paul.
Mel stared at the bag, the red spot slowly pooling. With the virus taking over, she struggles to recognize what's in front of her.
What's in there?
Then she remembered, sobbing and hugging the bundle.
So, this is it? I'm turning?
Mel's hands shook. She put the revolver to her head and fired the last bullet. Blood fell down her face, but she was still alive. She merely grazed herself. Then her body suddenly jerked. Everything went black. When Mel awoke, all she had were instincts. The sun was going down, that she knew. She saw 2 dead legs sticking out next to her. She ate some of the meat. She heard a sound outside. She liked sounds. Investigating, she left the building and looked up. A helicopter flew overhead. The sunset burned her eyes, but it wouldn't be long before the light would die. It was time to start hunting. After 2 months of the chaos inside Haran, survivors formed groups. Infected grew and mutated further in huger numbers, building multiple feeding grounds and nests, and the Ministry of Defense began considering more extreme measures to deal with the now contained, but ever deadly situation. They considered bombing the entire city in an attempt to completely destroy the virus. But of course, if survivors exist inside, what would the world think of this response? That sets the stage for Dying Light 1 to begin, where you play as GRE operative Kyle Crane. As Crane, the game starts with you preparing to dive out of a plane just over the now 2-month virus-stricken Haran. As an agent, you were tasked with the mission of capturing a man named Kadir Suleiman, one of Haran's local political figures who's worked with the GRE to maintain order after the outbreak started. But once his brother Hassan died in a disease-related incident, Suleiman went rogue, blaming the GRE for his brother's death and stealing a highly sensitive file from the organization. He used this file as a bargaining chip in negotiations with the GRE, saying that he'd publicize it if anything happened to him. As Crane is preparing to jump, the GRE claims that the file contains details about an incomplete process to synthesize a cure for the zombie virus. But because it's incomplete, it would be toxic and potentially doom countless lives if publicly released, just as Suleiman threatened. Fun. You jump out of the plane, and as you're falling, the GRE explain a citywide communication jam they issued to foil Suleiman's plans. Luckily, Crane's radio can overcome that jamming. Suleiman is believed to be leading one of the 2 major groups in the city, so the GRE tasks Crane with the mission of finding him by asking the locals. So with humanity seemingly at stake, Crane prepares to land in the decrepit city beneath his dangling feet. I'm gonna slow down with the yapping, because wow, that was a lot of information all at once, and what a nice view. Just Crane peacefully parachuting down directly into a zombie-infested city. What could go wrong?
Break his legs, then take him to rides.
Oh, okay. Crane is a dipshit. After some thugs magically teleport to Crane's location and beat him up, he shoots one of them, which of course is a bad idea. It attracts a viral that promptly nibbles on his tasty fresh arm. But before the zombie gets too many chomps in, an athletic duo rescue Crane. The woman, Jade, drags you to safety as Amir gets absolutely overwhelmed and devoured while covering for you two. Maybe he would have had a chance if they were playing with the event I had on through my recent playthrough that made zombies about as puntable as balloons. As Jade calls for help, Crane passes out. You wake up from a bed, as 2 little kids are freaking out at you thinking you're a zombie. As you stumble out of the rundown apartment room, some guy you bump into says you were asleep for 3 days. Also, they call you 31 because you're the 31st person infected, whom they saved. You're told to speak to the boss, and you find some teenage kid named Rahim. He's the brother of the woman that saved you, Jade Aldemir. Crane is rather insistent on getting his radio back, especially considering he's a spy for the GRE. Rahim then explains that he's not actually the boss, instead a man named Brecken is the leader of the tower. You also find out that there's a guy on the 13th floor who radioed for help, and after taking some initiative, you head down, finding a pretty gnarly scene. Crane reports in with the GRE, updating his higher-ups of his current situation. Then you hear a man screaming for help, and you rush to his aid, grabbing a metal pipe on the way. One very easy zombie kill later, you help Mark, covering his wound with some scavenged gauze and alcohol. Dr. Lena arrives, and with Rahim now respecting you a bit more, he says he's got some work for you. Once you meet him though, Jade shows up, giving hints as to one of Rahim's major goals. See, this kid really wants to blow up a big ol' zombie nest located in a construction site. Jade tells you that if there's anything you can do to help, it's to prevent her dumbass brother from getting himself killed. Rahim then tells you to change into some dope parkour clothes, and after doing so, you head up to the roof where you start your anime training arc. Oh hey, it's a crane. The perfect opportunity for...
A crane? On a crane?
Rahim's just like, just jump, bro.
Welcome to our gym. Jump down to the very bottom. Don't be a wimp. Watch this.
Rahim!
My leg!
I'll get help!
Ha! I was just fucking with you.
Son of a bitch!
So you hop down, do some parkour, and in basically no time at all, Raheem decides you're pretty much good to go. As you head back across the crane to the main tower, much like Melanie Wyatt did after she was bitten, you similarly have your first attack, showing just how bad the symptoms of the infection can be to experience.
What's happening to me? Shit. Oh, shit.
Talk to me. What's going on?
Raheem tells you to go see Dr. Imran Zara, located at a nearby settlement. So Crane heads out into the vast open world and meets the doctor, who gives you a shot of antizin, a treatment to postpone the inevitable. Luckily, they had some on hand for you. Zara explains the virus appears to be a variant of rabies, and that a cure is possible in theory. Unfortunately, he has limited resources, and the only other colleague he's able to work with is Dr. Alan Camden, located in Old Town, otherwise known as Sector 0. You get on your way and receive a new assignment from a man named Spike. He explains how the GRE periodically flies in airdrops, and there's two types. The first type has survival gear, food, and medicine and stuff, and the second type contains antizin. Spike says that tonight, Brecken and his team will be going after the next drop at sunset, but before they can, they need functional traps to assist them in their runs during the night, which is what Spike tasks you with setting up. You arm a bunch of traps, learn about firecrackers and how they can distract zombies, and promptly run into your first special infected, the Gooner. Dude, I cannot take that word seriously anymore. After you kill him, or just simply run away, you head to a safe zone, and you meet another special infected called a bolter. Then you promptly pass out, and with that, it's morning. But there's some bad news. Spike reports that Brecken's mission, well, I'll just show you how that went.
This world is not meant for you. Run, boy, run. They're trying to catch you.
Brecken got messed up. He was so close, too. Anyway, you report to Spike and see Brecken for yourself. You meet the injured Brit, who's pissed off because with him out of action, they won't be able to go out on another run right away. But then, Crane steps in and volunteers to get the next airdrop of antizin himself. And after a mild blow to Brecken's ego, he reluctantly agrees, which brings us to our next mission. Airdrop. That evening, Crane parkours to a crate dropped recently, but finds that it's already picked clean. Then a plane flies overhead, dropping 2 crates in separate spots. Crane dashes in their direction, flying off buildings as fast as his legs can take them. You find bandits at the first drop, and after dashing to the second drop, as the sun starts to go down, you crack it open to find multiple crates of antizin. Then, this is where something really stupid happens. The GRE is like, hey, so Kyle, why don't you destroy the crate of antizin instead of giving it to the people of the tower? Because if you do that, it'll artificially force them to interact with the other main faction of the city, the faction which is suspected to be led by Suleiman. Why the GRE thinks this was the only option to achieve said goal is anybody's guess, and Kyle just goes along with it right before nabbing one of the vials for himself. Dumbass. But I guess karma's a bitch, huh?
Jade, I'm at the airdrop. There's no antizin here.
It's time to go. Even though I've beaten this game like 30 times, this fucking sequence always freaks me out every time. Once you make it back to the tower, you offer yourself up to go negotiate with Rise, the leader of the other group, so that they can get the much needed antizin. So bullshit. So you head to Rise's garrison and find his right-hand man, Tahir, who you may remember as the guy who beat you up when you first dropped into the city. Then you're introduced to Suleiman as Rise. He chops this guy's hand off. Scary. Rise tries to intimidate you, and then he has you do some favors for him before he'll actually offer to trade any of his own antizin. His guy Kareem gives you your first tasks. Repair a satellite tower, and then another one. Surely this won't allow him to intercept the GRE's jamming and potentially spy on your calls with them. Subtle foreshadowing. You're then tasked with collecting money from various settlements across the slums. The people you collect the money from aren't even getting anything from Rise either. He's literally just terrorizing them. Like, bro, what the fuck? Once you get back to Rise's compound, you hand over the extortion money, and Rise is like, yeah, I promised you 2 crates, but I'm feeling like being an extra dick today, so here's a few vials. Rise says if Crane wants more, he needs to bring Jade Aldemir to his compound and let her fight in Rise's sick arena game for entertainment. Crane refuses and swiftly leaves. When you get back to the tower, Jade tells you that things got bad. Someone turned on one of the floors and others got trapped. It was a mess, but you hand over the small amount of antizin you were able to get and find Brecken. After watching Brecken freak the fuck out,
There were kids in there! What the fuck, Crane? I'm no leader. I'm a goddamn parkour instructor!
you head up to the roof to contact the GRE, but you meet a drunk Raheem sitting on the edge talking about how much he wants to blow up that distant zombie nest. Later, when Crane's talking to the GRE, he gets pretty mad, but they're just like, fuck off, trade the girl to Rise or we don't care.
You assholes take the fucking cake, you know that? You and your fucking file. I'll locate the file for you, but I'm gonna take a good long look at it before I decide what to do about it.
Crane is officially on the tower's side now. He's a man of the people. After your GRE conversation, Jade contacts you about a new lead. Rise took over an abandoned school, which she thinks could be where he's storing antizin. Meeting up with Jade at the school, the two of you sneak in and move through the honestly very creepy environment. This place is way too fucking quiet, bro, I swear. Finding some crates, you don't discover an antizin, but you do find plastic explosives. Jade yoinks them while you cover for her, fending off approaching bandits. After that, you head outside of the school and you find another special infected, the same one from earlier, this bolter. On your way back to the tower, Jade radios and decides to give the explosives to Saeed, their demolitions expert, so we can blow up the hive that Raheem had talked about. And you're tasked with going to Raheem and making sure he doesn't try and be part of the dangerous mission. You do, and Raheem is like, fine, before you go and visit Dr. Zara and ask him about the bolter that you saw. You go and get a sample for him, but on your way back, you get a radio call. Turns out, Raheem lied to you. Who could have seen this coming? He went to the fucking place to blow up the hive, the little shit. So you run after to find him, and Saeed, the demolitions guy, is fucking dead. What a surprise. Then you find Raheem in an abandoned train cart, saying he armed the bombs since he thought he was gonna die. You rush said bombs to the hive, plant them, and kaboom, goodbye nest. Once you get back to the train cart, you find Raheem, and he's fucked.
Raheem! Oh, you should have seen it. The whole damn building came down. Oh, shit! No, Raheem, stop! Raheem, it's me! Raheem, stop! That's a fucking bite wound.
His injury appeared to be more than just a cut. Then Crane says this,
You goddamn stupid fucking kid!
So Raheem's dead, and you report back to Brecken about the situation. And then Jade walks in. Awkward. If things couldn't get more insane, Dr. Zara's safe zone is suddenly attacked. An explosion shakes the tower, and you run into the fire and explosives to find he's been kidnapped. You rush over to Rise's garrison, because obviously this fucker did it, and you sneak in.
This is the Ministry of Defense. We have declared Haran a Code 1 target zone.
You can't just carpet bomb this place. There are still hundreds of innocent people in here. Maybe thousands.
Irrelevant.
Eventually, you find Dr. Zara tied up deep inside the compound. Suddenly, the lights go out, and when they turn on again, you're ambushed by Rise and his men. Okay, I guess they're just fucking magicians. Rise stabs Zara and tosses you into his pit, the same pit he wanted to throw Jade into. You fight through waves, kill this big guy, and then pull the coolest fucking move in video game history.
Kill him.
Dr. Zara is dead, Rise is pissed, and it's time for you to run. You escape his sick compound, but then pass out from your infection. Somehow Brecken finds you and takes you to one of the pier settlements to hide you away from Rise. You've basically got a 5-star wanted level from this guy. Brecken tells you that Jade managed to take Dr. Zara's valuable zombie research and head towards Old Town to deliver it to Dr. Camden, Zara's buddy. So you follow in after her, but you need to take the sewers to get through, which requires getting smuggled in by a group called the Saviors. You meet these people, head on through the sewers, and it turns out they ratted you out to Rise, so you get ambushed. But you're Kyle fucking Crane, so it doesn't matter. Welcome to Old Town, or in other words, Sector 0. Stepping out into the much more luxurious, but equally as infected part of the city, you meet someone new. Troy radios you, and once you meet up with them at their own kind of tower, you learn something quick. You're also presented with a reality. Haran's Ministry of Defense is planning on bombing the city because of misinformation claiming that there are no survivors left. They're trying to convince the world that y'all don't exist, it's just zombies left. You try and collaborate with Jade, but she's still pissed that Raheem is dead. Then the Ministry broadcasts this.
An internal global relief effort document surfaced today that, if verified, implicates the GRE in a far-reaching criminal conspiracy. Instead of trying to find a cure for the Haran virus, according to the file, the GRE had plans to weaponize it and sell it to the highest bidder. Worldwide backlash has...
No, skip to the important bit.
I was the last survivor left in the quarantine. I can't believe I made it out. I can't believe I'm still alive.
We mourn all those who didn't survive. There's no one left besides the infected.
Rightfully pissed off, you and your new friends concoct a plan to prove the Ministry wrong. You're gonna set off a set of explosives in a tall building nearby to create a deliberate call for help that only people could make. You do that, moving through the horrifying and very not abandoned structure, which is infested with not only the zombies that you're used to, but these horrifying little shits, baby zombies. You rig the explosives, escape through the sewers, and detonate.
Jade, is that you?
Crane, I see what you did.
So, do you believe me now that I'm on your side?
Watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
Sons of bitches.
The Ministry is like, oh shit, they're ruining our propaganda! So they bomb your little smiley face. I worked so hard on that. Jade agrees to finally meet you after seeing what you did for the city, but when you get to the meeting place, you find this.
Jade? Troy, this is Crane. Rise has taken Jade. He has her in some museum somewhere. Do you know what he's talking about?
So clearly Rise captured Jade, but how he did it and wrote this whole ass message in blood in like 2 minutes between the end of our conversation with Jade and actually getting to this place? No fucking clue. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Rise now has Dr. Zera's research since he captured Jade, so we need to head to the museum nearby to save her. You sneak in, kill a bunch of dudes, and eventually reach her, but it doesn't take long to realize something irreversible happened to Jade. Rise let a zombie bite her, and to make things worse, he's been spying on your conversations with the GRE this whole time. He basically says checkmate in this cocky confrontation before flooding your room with more zombies for you and Jade to fight off. Once you do, Bro tosses you a vial of antizin, forcing you and Jade to decide who should get it, since Crane is conveniently also feeling very much like he's about to turn into a zombie. In your delirium, you hallucinate some pretty gnarly stuff, taking you through Crane's events in Haran thus far, which, now that I think about it, kind of reminds me of Melanie Wyatt's visions back in Nightmare Row. But eventually, you come to as a zombified Jade attacks you. Turns out, though, she's not a zombie. You just thought she was, since you were basically in the process of turning, right as she injects you with the antizin vial. Rise then sends his men in to finish the two of you off, but Jade isn't feeling it.
It's the natural order of things, Crane. Kill or be killed. Eat or be eaten.
Goodbye, Jade.
Now, she's a zombie. And you gotta do her just like you did Raheem. Rest in peace, Jade. Now, it's time to kill Tahir. Fuck this guy.
You're not the kind of loose end you leave untied.
After you leave the museum, Troy calls. Meeting her up on a building, she tells you to install a device on a big ol' antenna tower so that you can contact the outside world and tell the Ministry not to bomb Haran, because there's clearly people inside. You go through the sewers, jump onto a comically large pile of trash bags, and eventually climb the damn antenna, where this happens.
Anyone who can hear me, please listen. My name is Kyle Crane, and I'm sending this message from inside the Haran quarantine. Colonel Tanner and the Ministry of Defense have lied to you. There are still survivors inside the walls. They plan to firebomb Haran, but if those bombs drop, you will know Tanner and the Ministry are cold-blooded murderers.
Holy shit! There's someone alive in the quarantine zone? Hey, do you copy? Do you copy? It's Waldron! I knew it!
That was too close.
Just in time! So, I guess no firebombing Haran. At least not yet. Then the GRE contacts you.
We want to offer you a chance to get out of that horrible place.
Oh yeah? And why would you do that? I never found out who had your precious file. You don't even have to pay the rest of my fee.
Water under the bridge, Kyle. We're best off just to move past that. All you need to do is to bring Dr. Zera's research with you, and we'll send a nice, safe helicopter to extract you.
You realize I know what was in the file. I knew you were going to exploit the virus. Try to convince everyone you were working toward a cure the whole time.
That's my boy. You tell him, Crane. Now, from here, all that's left is to get Dr. Zera's tissue samples to Dr. Camden, in his locked-off infected facility, no less. After making it through the place one way or another, you meet with the man at last, and he examines the package. While it's only one of the 2 tissue samples Dr. Zera prepared, the tissue samples can at least give them a clue as to whether or not the cure is feasible. After leaving his lab and contacting the GRE from up high, you're met with a voice you weren't expecting. Rise.
Rise? Where are you?
Bro taunts you and asks you to challenge him atop his really tall tower back in the slums, so naturally you do just that. Oh yeah, and to make this even more urgent, Rise explained that the GRE agreed to evacuate him from Haran since he made a deal with them and he currently has the file that you originally were sent in here to retrieve. Let's fucking get this guy.
So, face to face again. I guess that means I don't need this anymore.
With or without it, Suleiman, you're dead.
Now it's time for a QTE. Crazy work to have this be the final boss, but it is what it is. You boys have a good old tussle while the GRE helicopter flies overhead until at last the fight concludes.
What's that for a decision, asshole?
The GRE asks you to evacuate with the file and research contained inside that hard drive, but you're all like, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing, while you look off into the sunset. So that's the end of Dying Light 1. Except, not really, because the game has a hugely relevant DLC called The Following, which we're gonna briefly cover, especially because it directly ties into the newly released Dying Light the Beast. The Following begins with Crane and Dr. Lena helping out a delirious new survivor who happened to be holding a map leading to an entirely new region, a way out of Haran. This crazy guy claims that people over there are able to be infected without turning, so Crane naturally decides to investigate as the tower people are desperately in need of more antizin. After heading through some sewers, we find the new place, and goddamn is it beautiful. Welcome to the countryside. Also, Lena radios us and says the delirious man just died. Sucks for him. Ooh, look, hay bales. Eventually you find a settlement and speak to some weird people. You meet the leader of the group, Jasir, and a shady guy named Khan. See, this Khan gives you a hint about where to find a vehicle, since those are pretty helpful in this area. Crane's like, we ball, so he steals it from some bandits. Car unlocked. Then you meet Jasir's daughter, Ezgi, who tells you to gain some street cred around here if you want people to trust you, so you do just that. After you fix their water problems, the people start to trust you at least a little bit, but in order to gain more trust of the local people, you're gonna need to do a whole lot more quests. After you do, eventually you're given a hint about where apparently you can see the weird, non-turning infected people for yourself. You need to reach a place called the Eye of the Sun. After you head there, you find, what the fuck?
What the hell did they do to you?
I have been shown the error of my ways. They have opened my eyes to the truth.
Your destiny and mine are intertwined.
After you wake up from your weird trip, you're contacted by these weird, faceless mask people. Wait, they're just like me for real. The dudes tell you to go do some work for them if you want to learn more or whatever. This is a common theme in this DLC. You're just forced to do side quests, okay? Otherwise, you play through the story in like 1 hour. So you go to a field and investigate a strange phenomenon. There's weird zombie neutralizing smoke in the field, making this demolisher just a homie, basically. Oh, by the way, the mask people worship someone known as the Mother. She's their cult leader, basically, and she's rather important, but for now, you're focused on the tasks at hand. Speaking of which, when you meet one of the mask guys, bro says that the smoke makes the zombies chill, if that wasn't obvious enough. But the smoke elixir is running out, and it's not really much of a cure, more like a band-aid on a flesh wound. But they're allegedly working on a project that can become a real cure. So you're tasked with going to a cave to find out what happened to a small group of the masked people that were sent in for supplies. They got ambushed by bandits, it would turn out, and after you investigate, you're told to go speak with a man who was doing important work for the Mother. You head to this guy's mansion and find out his name is Attila, and he's dying of cancer. He's trying to research this prophecy about the god of the sun for the cult, and you do some tasks and errands for him to help out. Visiting different sacred ritual sites, you find some peculiar drawings until you're eventually led to a site with a red mask. You bring the mask back to Attila. Bro recites a rather foreboding prophecy about a man who has to sacrifice himself before he tells you you've done enough. Not long after leaving the mansion, the Acolytes, which is actually the name of the mask cult people, they call you and they frantically say that you need to check on Attila because he went radio silent. When you do, you find a note he left behind before you uncover his body. He cut his own throat with the mask on, probably with the idea that he'd be saved by the god of the sun, based on that weird old prophecy. Well, clearly that didn't work, bro. The Acolytes radio you and basically call Attila a dumbass before asking you to grab the mask as well as the book that Attila was writing for the cult. You take the stuff to Jasir, since he's going to give it to them, and it seems like all is well for a short time, because it turns out the Acolytes just got attacked by the bandit group that's been hinted at here and there. Brother Orkun, one of the Acolytes, was kidnapped by the bandits, so you head to a huge granary and rescue him. After fighting through hordes of men, you find it's too late.
I told them nothing.
Don't talk, save your energy. I'll get you out of here.
Lighthouse. Lighthouse.
Orkun, stay with me. Damn it.
What did they do to him? In his dying breath, the victim tells us to reach a lighthouse. With no time to waste, we head to the only lighthouse in the area and find...
Shit, it's you. Damn, I could have killed you.
Khan?
That's me, so turn me loose. Hey, what the fuck?
It was you. You're working with Rise's bandits? Where is it, you son of a bitch? Where the hell is the cure?
What? You're crazy.
Don't fuck with me, Khan. Where is it?
Look, I just live here, all right? I don't know shit about working with bandits.
Boss, you there?
Who's speaking?
Chief, there you are.
They forced me! They made me do it!
It's Crane!
What the fuck are you doing?
These dipshits killed their boss because apparently that's worth it if it means killing Kyle Crane. But either way, you survive the exploding lighthouse and you grab these super secret, highly valuable elixir vials from the lighthouse debris, proceeding to then rush to the dam where the bandits are headed. Basically, they're trying to cripple the Acolyte group and take their zombie-resistant stuff for themselves. You make it to the dam and witness a gruesome sight. Wandering through the body-riddled facility, you hear the mother's voice in your head.
I'm tired. I've held this title for so long now. The mother. It was meaningless. Until it became all too real. I thought their respect came simply because I was a colonel's wife. After the outbreak, my husband came to get me out. We were bitten. He bled to death in my arms. He gave me his cigarette case and asked me to run. It took me a while to remember that my husband didn't smoke. I looked inside. There was a map, a key, and a note with numbers. It led us here. The healthy ones tried to get the power back on. The rest of us went to look for medicine. Pointless. We found a locked container. The numbers turned out to be a code. There were strange vials inside. The others looked to me. I was about to turn, and I realized, why else would my husband lead me here?
Then you reach her at last.
You see, breathing the fumes is one thing, but drinking the liquid is something else entirely.
The mother gives you a choice. Work with her and activate a nuke that'll wipe out Haran and in the process, the zombie virus, seemingly for good. Or say fuck you and demand she give you the strange unknown vials because they look like they might taste like Gatorade and Kyle's very thirsty right now. I feel like most players will choose the option to fight this bitch because, I mean, who honestly wants to nuke themselves, right? In the nuke ending, you just die. But if you resist, something interesting happens. This freaky bitch forces you to gulp down a vial and then you start turning into a crack addict and fight her while hallucinating until eventually you rip her head off. Crane becomes even more delirious, yoinks the remaining vials, wanders through a sewer, and eventually reaches what appears to be a way out of the infected region altogether, a way out of Haran. He sees a woman and 2 children nearby playing, but then they scream. Kyle looks down at his hands. He's become a beast. But okay, pause for a second. Unlike Mr. Beast, who definitely has his own version of Epstein Island by now, Kyle Crane isn't actually a psychopath. Dying Light and the following build his character as someone who stays human through it all, both from a moral perspective and a biologically transformative one. While Crane appears to turn into an uncontrollable volatile at the end of the following's canon ending, Dying Light the Beast gives us the answers we've been seeking for nearly a decade. So we can finally answer what happens next. What we learned from a one-off upload on the Dying Light YouTube channel is that Spike from Dying Light 1 ended up helping the people of the tower evacuate Haran as the city over time was simply becoming more and more dangerous, especially because the GRE stopped the airdrops. Spike led the group of survivors out of Haran successfully and was oblivious to Crane's fate, as well as the other characters like Dr. Lena and Dr. Camden. And speaking of Crane's fate, not long after he escapes the sewers from the following, he's captured by the GRE. They did this because they wanted human-zombie hybrid people to experiment on, or weapons research, of course, just the usual. Within the years after Crane's capture, zooming out to the world at large, the GRE manages to create a vaccine against the Haran virus. But it wasn't long until a new strain would evolve, because the GRE continued research with said virus, and eventually the new strain, resistant to the vaccine, escaped into the world. But this time it was so much worse. It infected nearly the entire world. Most people were killed or infected, and only a few settlements, enclaves, existed, who still resisted the extinction level threat. Allegedly, Dying Light 2 tries to tell us that the last bastion of humanity, the last real city, is a place called Villador. But that's really just bullshit, because otherwise what human groups would we have to interact with in Dying Light the Beast? Speaking of which, after the collapse of the world and basically 99% of humanity is wiped out, Spike, who is still somehow alive at this point, becomes a pilgrim, delivering shit across the world for people, solely so he can find Kyle Crane. That's his whole motivation. Kinda cute. Around this time, the GRE gives Crane to this annoying British guy called the Baron, who operates by a small town in the Western Alps called Castor Woods, a previously famous tourist hotspot. But before we can go there, we have to cover the events of Dying Light 2. So let's just rip the band-aid off. I'm going to make it clear that I do not like the story of Dying Light 2, and so this section is going to be a much shorter recap. Hopefully you'll be able to understand why. The gameplay is largely pretty okay, and while I'm most definitely biased since I grew up with Dying Light 1, I've seen a lot of negative reception for the sequel game, and especially its insanely convoluted story. But if anything, at least we can see how it ties into and compares to Dying Light the Beast, so we can see for ourselves that Techland is truly incapable of writing good stories. Dying Light 2 is about a young man named Aiden, who's a pilgrim, someone that delivers shit between settlements. He's looking for his sister, Mia, who he was split off from as a kid, and he thinks she can be found in the last bastion of humanity, the isolated city of Villador, which is located somewhere in Europe. The game starts with you as Aiden running from some infected and meeting a super old Spike. How and why he's here, other than for a poor attempt at nostalgia bait, I don't know. Anyway, you drink some old beer, Spike reminisces about Crane, more nostalgia bait, and then Aiden lore dumps his entire character motivation, basically. Some fucker named Waltz abused him and his sister as kids, and Aiden is going to Villador to find the answers. One of Spike's contacts is going to help him do just that, so Aiden goes to a radio tower, listens on the frequency, makes contact with the guy, goes to meet him, but then gets bit by a caked up volatile. The infection seems to turn people really fast now, and just before you get obliterated by the creature, the radio guy saves you with some UV. Then he says you need to get into the light or else you're gonna turn. While you seize out, your acquaintance gets ambushed by bandits called renegades. You find the informant, getting beaten up by them later, so you save him, but then, oh no, Waltz is coming. The informant gives you something called a GRE key, and then he locks you in a vent so you can escape, and so he can die, because the writers wanted to show you that Waltz is scary. He kills people. You escape into the sewers, and then pop up in the middle of a fucking building in Villador. The people try and hang you, because you're turning into a zombie, but then this French guy Hakon saves you, and he introduces you to the city. Then he takes you to an infected GRE hospital, since you, being the newbie in town, are missing something everyone else has. A little bracelet that tells everyone whether or not you're a zombie. Basically, your infected level. Dude, the more times that I have to look at these children, the more I just want to, like, burn down an orphanage.
Career saved, skill check, successful.
Fast forward, you meet your first faction, the Survivors. Finding their bizarre settlement, the same place where he almost got hung, you meet a bunch of very forgettable characters and eventually chat with Hakon about how to get further into Villador so you can reach the center to find more clues about your sister. You go into a tunnel to sneak into the center with Hakon, but then you get captured by the second faction you meet, the Peacekeepers. They're kind of like the pseudo-police force in Villador. They try and intimidate you, and then they force you to solve the murder of one of their commanders called Lucas. TLDR, you're pitted against the two factions, as the Peacekeepers are suspicious of the Survivors, and you can side with either of them, which ultimately doesn't really fucking matter anyway, but after enough dilly-dallying, you solve the murder by eventually finding out that Hakon did it. This is why you should never trust the French. Then Hakon gets shot by a fucking crossbow bolt, and by investigating the attacker, you find a woman, and she kicks you in the balls. This is Lawan. Anyway, you go deeper into the city, meet Waltz in the flesh, who has infinite plot armor, open a bunch of doors that serve as loading zones, because this game was horribly optimized, and then you meet Lawan, and she doesn't kick you in the balls this time. She wants you to help her turn on the power in the city. And she gives you a glider, so you're going around like you're playing fucking Breath of the Wild. Oh, and then she introduces you to the Bazaar 2.0, called the Fisheye, the Survivors' main base in the city center. But what happens next? Oh, you'll never believe. The Renegades attack the Fisheye. Oh no! So you help the Survivors, meet the Peacekeepers' CEO, Jack Matt, do some errands for a child predator, the Peacekeepers, the Survivors from time to time, and the next thing you know it, you're going in an elevator in a dangerous tower with a bunch of dudes who think they're your friends. They all fucking die, then you unlock a grappling hook and you become Spider-Man, turn on a radio tower, decide to give it to one faction or another, and then, oh, Hakon attacks you in a church. So you fuck him up several times, but he has French plot armor, so he can't die, at least at first. Holy shit, can someone do to me what I did to Hakon's ragdoll right now? Please. I dislocated his balls! They must be hanging on by a thread, and this dude just gets back up after you try and leave. I'm gonna crash. I'm crashing. Fast forward, you're going to an abandoned GRE facility to find more clues about Mia. Remember Mia, your sister that you don't care about, but Aiden wants you to care about? Yeah, her. You go to this facility with this random white bitch, Veronica, who couldn't walk around my schizophrenia Aiden hallucinations, also known as my friends. Then Waltz shows up and he touches you everywhere, and then you turn into a zombie for a second and you just fucking kill Veronica. And you wake up next to her corpse as Waltz is just stealing your GRE key with the body language of like a really exhausted homeless man. Like what is he doing? What's happening? Oh yeah, then out of nowhere, they hit the second tower. You also get bombed. I don't. Okay. Back at the fisheye, the leader, Frank, gets fucked because the Peacekeeper leader, Jack Matt, set up this trap scenario that mortally wounded Frank and blamed it on the Renegades. So you have to choose between saving Frank or going after the Renegades. If you go and chase after the Renegades, you find their stoner truck driver and you force him to drive into their base and you do some sneaky shit until you eventually find the Renegade leader, who isn't Waltz. It's actually this guy called the Colonel. Not that Colonel. He's basically like, Waltz is a piece of shit and I don't work with him anymore, and we the Renegades are actually pretty cool. Because there's two Renegades. See, there's the Waltz's Renegades that he took with him that have fucked up voices, and then there's these Renegades, which are different because they are. It all makes sense, see? At this point, all your choices thus far add up to influence who is on your side versus against you at this weird circle jerk meeting place. I guess the developers thought it would be cool because choices. But then another fucking missile comes out of nowhere and just lands somewhere, and everyone's like, a missile. You chase after Waltz, because apparently you know where he's going and where he is. He's going to some GRE facility where they launched the missiles from. Then Lawan is there for some reason. The two of you find out that this facility not only stores missiles, but also a bunch of food and stuff for doomsday preppers. After you get through the facility with Lawan, you find Waltz at last, and you find Mia. She's very sick, it turns out. And Waltz is trying to keep her on life support. Aiden's like, hey, I want to take Mia. And Waltz is like, no, you can't do that. She needs to be with me. And I need to take care of her and shit. And Aiden's like, okay, I'm gonna kill you. Then you beat the shit out of him in a several stage boss fight that made me want to perform a vasectomy on myself. Bada boom, bada bang, you have two choices, basically. If Lawan, in fact, went to the facility with you in the first place, either you let her arm these bombs herself so you can escape with Mia, or you can save Lawan and help her, which I guess would result in Mia dying. If you choose to save Mia, well, you take her out of the facility, and it doesn't even fucking matter anyway because she dies right after. With either option, Lawan also survives because she's just armed the bombs and then somehow didn't die in the massive explosion. Crazy. You can also involve Hakon in the ending depending on if you let him survive before, but it's just, yeah. So, at this point, I bet I know what you're thinking. I'd love to know what the story of Dying Light 2's DLC, Bloody Ties, is all about. Oh, you weren't asking that. Cool. I think my skin would fall off of my body if I had to elaborate on Dying Light 2's attempt at a story DLC in more than 2 sentences. Bloody Ties is about a weird, kinky fight ring that introduces annoying and forgettable characters and adds nothing to the plot. You could avoid playing Bloody Ties and miss literally nothing when it comes to Dying Light's story and lore. So that's Dying Light 2. Now, if you were in great emotional distress at this point, I have some good news. It's finally over, and from here, we can answer the question of how all of this ultimately leads into the story of Dying Light: The Beast. While Dying Light 2 was going on, Kyle was getting tortured for a decade, undergoing experiments by the Baron. It's 13 years in, the latest point in the timeline, and Kyle is really depressed. He's just about ready to die at this point. Bro does not want to live on anymore. He's really just done with this shit. One day though, during one of Kyle's tests, out of fucking nowhere, Spike and Aiden sneak in and try to rescue him.
Wait a second, I think I know what's gonna happen. There's gonna be a character from the first game or something that doesn't make any sense.
They fail. Next thing we know it, Kyle has a replacement. Some absolutely shredded hunk of ass is strapped in next to him. And while you might think you know where this is going, it gets interrupted when your new friend breaks out and starts killing the scientists. You escape in the chaos and find the lab is overrun by zombies. You hear a girl on the radio and she's trying to save you. Who the fuck is this, and why would Kyle trust her? Her name is Olivia, and, well, she's kind of your only hope right now. She guides you through the lab as you crawl, baby style. Then Olivia's like, Kyle, your muscles are atrophied. Please inject the adrenaline that you'll find coming up right on your left. He does. It is ouchy, but he continues onward. As you try to escape the lab, you learn about beast mode. God damn, is this satisfying. You leave the facility and take your first steps into Castor Woods. Olivia tells you to find safe haven in a nearby monastery, and when you find it and turn on the power, she shows up in the flesh. She's seeming kinda sus, but Kyle's filled with rage, so he doesn't really care. Bro just wants a piece of that barren ass, and he wants it now. Olivia says that in order to get her out of the valley, which is allegedly her goal, and to enact your revenge and kill the Baron and his entire army, which is clearly your goal, you need to find GSB, which is like a special zombie booster blood that you're gonna extract from said special zombies with a little device. The special zombies are called chimeras. You'll get 2 samples, one for injecting herself and the other for Olivia for testing. And as a bonus, as you inject yourself with GSB, you get stronger, allowing you to unlock more beast abilities. It turns out the first chimera is nearby, and you beat the fuck out of him before randomly falling over from exhaustion. Olivia extracts his yummy GSB and injects that shit straight into your bloodstream. You wake up a few days later and accidentally almost kill Olivia because she is a woman, and Jade was also a woman. Crane has only talked to a few women in his life, so it makes sense he'd be a little confused. Anyway, you get ready and head out into Castor Woods to make some friends that'll help you kill the Baron. And if you're playing in multiplayer, Kyle does this with his schizophrenic hallucinations.
You know what? You're doing a surprisingly good job at driving considering the amount of shit everywhere in this game. Stop! Stop the car! Stop the car! What the fuck? Let me out!
We call this move the Kyle mitosis. Once you look for survivors in the town hall in a place they call Old Town. Wait, that's just like Haran, what the fuck? You kill this big old chimera and eject his yummy juices. Ugh, that shit's good. The people say that they got fucked up by a really insane, beastly man that they've never seen before, and they need help. Namely, their sheriff does in reactivating the power. So you help her out, get back to the town hall, this guy fucking shoots himself. Bro got infected, so, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Next, the people task you with finding and killing that insane beast that fucked everything up. You find it, and oh, it's your buddy from the lab that basically replaced you. Yeah, he's not happy. Shit hits the fan, you get split up, and after meeting back up with Olivia, she tasks you with more chimera hunting. Oh damn, this one's freaky.
Oh! Oh shit! God damn! Holy fuck!
Your next mission is to get the power plant back on for the group in Old Town. You get it sorted, but then the fucking Baron's men show up. You walked right into a trap. Then Kyle's all like, you don't want to see me when I get mad. Trust me, I get really scary at night, and in the dark, the beast comes out.
Told you not to piss me off.
After your little massacre, you get the power back on, return to Town Hall, and try and convince leadership to help you destroy the Baron. But they're all like, it sounds kind of scary and stuff. So you're like, okay, fine, I'll do it myself. I don't need friends. Your next chimera hunt leads you to a strange monument that the Baron set some gas shit up by. Eventually, the trail leads to a factory littered with his dudes. This scientist guy tells you how to find the now very escaped and dangerous chimera that they were just testing on, and how you need to use red gas to attract it. Then we find our man. Holy shit, he has cake.
Looks like a zombie-esque.
The next day, the sheriff tells you that she found the Baron. He's at the mine, so you should totally go there and kill him. You arrive, but then you find out it was a trap. The sheriff fucked you over. But Kyle isn't having any of this shit, and he opens his big container, which just so happened to be holding his beast buddy. Kyle escapes in the chaos and tells the town hall about what the fuck just happened, to which Jacob, the second in command, is pretty confused since he wasn't aware of any of it. Then he tells you to reach out to a new group, a group of sentient zombie people that were basically cast out of the town hall. As you head towards their region, you start hearing a Swedish man whisper sweet nothings in your ear.
Crane, can you hear me?
What the hell?
Don't be frightened. I'm not your enemy. I'm a telepath. Jacob asked me to reach out. The radio isn't safe.
And this is freaky as fuck.
You meet up with this stranger and find out his name is Sven. Holy shit, Sven is drippy. He tells you to save his friends, more people like him, and you head out as fast as you can because you're getting absolutely aura-farmed by this man. Turns out his friends got captured by the Baron, so you save them and bring them to the home base of these special people, a cozy little cave. The leader of this group is named Lydia. She doesn't trust you, so you do them a favor and mount a bunch of transmitter things on some towers so they can spy on the Baron, and after you do, you find out immediately that the Baron is trying to bomb the town hall. They just planted explosives beneath it. Let's just defuse those real quick. Alright, what's next? Olivia wants to chat, so you do, in a car, the first of many car meetings, mind you, and she tasks you with your next chimera, this fucked up infected motherfucker with shit on his back who throws a bunch of toxic snot at you. If you know, you know. But he was no match.
Get fucked!
Then it's telepathy Discord call time.
Let's just say tapping into the comms got me thinking that perhaps I've been too passive.
Your pals task you with yoinking some research from a nearby school, since it has a research outpost in the gym. In the process, you find a scientist named Camilo. He's been hiding in here like a little freak, but you yoink him, along with some research that looks suspiciously like the hard drive from Dying Light 1. It's like the same asset. Then you end up in the middle of a fucking war between bandits and the Baron's men. I'm just gonna let this one play out. After you get back to the cave, you find out one of your infected pals, Ray, was supposed to deliver the scientist back to home base, but something must have gone wrong. You investigate and find a gruesome scene. Holy shit.
Poor bastard.
Then we find the scientist, and everything turns out okay. Alright, now it's Chimera time. Damn, this bitch is kind of freaky. When you return to Olivia, you hand over some samples, and she tells you that her dad is working under the Baron, and she wants to save him, revealing at least part of her motivation. I would probably care if these characters had more depth than a bucket with a smiley face on it. Wait, actually no, Mama had more depth than all of them combined. Fast forward, we're talking to the gang in a cave. Camilo is a nice guy, and he's helping the infected people hone their telepathic abilities. They send us on a fetch quest to get volatile ass juice from a cave, which is where we run into this fucking Chimera. Holy shit. After extracting the ass juice, we deliver it, kill another Chimera, and at last max out our beast abilities. We're now ready to face the Baron. But first, Lydia tells you to go into an old psychiatric hospital to get a drug for her so she can be extra good at her telepathic abilities, which at this point can control zombies, not just call people on telepathy Discord. I'm not even gonna question what's going on, and neither do the zombies while she's influencing them. That is, unless you open doors.
What? I opened a door and they freaked out.
Open your door.
They don't like that. You get the medicine drug.
Oh, House, we need to cure this patient. Did you try the medicine drug?
But oh no, we needed more melodrama. So it turns out the town hall is getting attacked again by the Baron. You stop that shit in its tracks.
Why?
Oh, fuck. Dude, these fucking guys suck.
Point blank.
Alright,
Point blank right in the face.
Don't make the same mistake we did.
Lydia reveals her full potential by controlling one of the big guys, and we meet the sheriff again, finding out that she didn't want to betray you, she just had to, or else the Baron would have fucking killed everyone. Which is funny, because that's what he's been trying to do this whole time, so why did she wait until now to, you know what, it doesn't even matter. Both the Old Town people and the infected people team up, and they decide it's finally time to kill the Baron, which gets Kyle really hard, I mean excited. The first order of business is to lure the Baron out by trapping and capturing his newest prized possession, the Beast. No, not you, the other Beast. So you grab some red gas from Bro's factory and just kind of let it rip in the forest, driving around like a fucking psycho. Eventually, this works. You lure the Beast to a cave, and then...
Join us when you're ready, Kyle.
It's bringing back so many memories. No, it couldn't be. Is this?
Who are you? Where am I?
Bro, it's fucking Aiden. What? I feel like I should have seen this coming because it's really obvious, but okay. So rewind way back to the beginning of the game, right? After the events of Dying Light 2, Aiden left Villador and met up with Spike at some point. Spike found GRE info that pointed towards the Baron, so Aiden and Spike decided to come rescue you. Then the Baron realized that Aiden had some insane abilities, because, you know, being tested on and shit, so he made Aiden ripped as fuck with his tests, and basically Aiden became his new boy toy, until Bro broke out, allowing you also to break out, and well, the rest is history. Everybody is kinda eepy, so they go ZZZ, and after waking up, they find out Aiden left the cave to go after Spike himself. And the Baron talks to you on the radio, he's like, hey, yeah, we captured Aiden. Dude, what the fuck is this writing? What? Are you... Seriously? You and the gang concoct a plan to break into the Baron's super evil castle by blowing into it through the catacombs underneath. You do just that, fight your way through the castle, Sven dies. Fuck! Then you gotta fight several big guys. And finally, Crane finds Aiden, going into a room that he could very easily get locked into. And guess what? He does.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
By none other than Olivia. She, just like the sheriff, unsurprisingly, was being blackmailed by the Baron with her dad as leverage.
Ew.
You know, like, what the fuck? Like, you would touch me.
Dude, you're
like,
literally
you're
so
literally-
gross.
you smell weird. You smell kind of weird. Like, there's like this weird smell coming off of you, and I don't really, I
It's
don't
just,
know
like,
where
weird.
that,
I don't
like,
know.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know when it started, but like, please get away from me.
We wake up at a dinner table scene, which is good, because all this yapping I've been doing is making me hungry.
I invited you all here to help me celebrate. So I allowed you to escape.
Bullshit. You are a fucking dead man!
Again with the empty threats. Please. It's pathetic. Your turn is coming, Crane. I want to feel your fear and see the life leave your eyes.
No, stop, please. Please don't do this.
They brought this on themselves, Olivia.
You don't have to do this. Don't think so.
Olivia, did you really think you could kill me? How disappointing. I'll be honest, I saw a real future for us.
I'm so sorry. I was always on your side, but I had to hide it until now.
It's okay. I'm just glad you picked the right side. That motherfucker is mine!
So he killed Spike, which has like no meaning because this character has had basically no development in this franchise due to the fact his entire continuation past the first game was nothing more than nostalgia bait. But Baron also kills Camilo, which is also pretty meaningless because they just introduced his character like 75% of the way through the game. But then Lydia uses her powers against the Baron somehow because telepathy and stuff. Olivia breaks her restraints, and you and Aiden head up to the elevator to finish this. As cheesy and fucking ridiculous as the ending has been so far, I have to admit this did give me a little bit of a smile because, I mean, bro, Kyle and Aiden are teaming up to kill the bad guy. It's like the new guy and the old guy are like friends and they're doing the thing. It's like wholesome bro activities. All right, now it's boss fight time.
The bitch at the base of dawn.
I'm gonna let him inject that.
Shoots the injection.
Ah, fuck, my life's work!
Ooh. That's cute.
Where did all that mass come from?
You know, you're not supposed to ask. What the fuck?
Kyle dropkicks this motherfucker off an edge and decides to pull an absolute gamer move.
Kill you.
Damn, bro, if that don't appeal to my male gamer brain, I don't know what does. With that, the beast concludes. What happens next? Will we get Dying Light 4 with 3 playable characters perhaps? Who's to say? But man, did this game change my perspective on Dying Light. Here's what I think. From the beginning of The Beast, it was obvious the latest evolution of the story turned Crane into a dumber action protagonist than he already was. But in stupidifying him, by the end of the game, it made me realize, finally, that for years, I've been blinded by nostalgia for Dying Light 1. I criticized the second game heavily, without realizing that this franchise has always been pretty badly written. Like, Kyle Crane, as much as he's been turned into an absolute meathead in the third game, was always pretty stupid. Dying Light 1's story was nothing crazy compared to 2, it was just as cliche. And The Beast, well, it's par for the course. But the Dying Light games aren't about their story. They're about crushing skulls, they're about parkour, they're about going rabid on everything around you. They're about the gameplay. And while it's a shame that the franchise's prequel book, Nightmare Row, paints such a completely different view of what we could have gotten with the IP, a story that takes itself more seriously with actually good writing, nothing at this point will change the Dying Light games from the identity they've cemented with their existence. The latest game has made that clear as day. And you know what? That's okay. So with that said, I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and remember, good night and good luck.